Welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be doing a review of The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. So I've almost read about 20 books now. I think I'm actually getting closer to 30 books this year. And I've read quite a few kind of Middle Eastern inspired fantasy books in relatively quick succession. No idea why, I've just kind of felt like I've been in the mood for it, to be honest. And I've been really enjoying them. I read the new book by S.A. Chakraborty, which is coming out in a few weeks' time. I did a review on that, check it out in my channel. And then I also decided to pick up The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. My friend and I decided that we wanted to buddy read it together because we actually read the David Batch trilogy together and it was a really nice experience. And so we thought, let's pick this one up together because we're both very into Middle Eastern, Arabic, North African inspired fantasy. So we thought we'd pick this one up together. I ended up going way ahead of her and finishing it way ahead of her, but there we go. And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. This is a debut book by Chelsea, and I'm really excited to see where her stories go, where her writing develops, because I think she has a lot of promise. Before I go into my review, I'm going to read the back of the book so that you know what it's about. Luli El-Nazari is the Midnight Merchant, a criminal who, with the help of her jinn bodyguard, hunts and sells illegal magic. When she saves the life of a cowardly prince, she draws the attention of his powerful father, the Sultan, who blackmails her into finding an ancient lamp. With no choice but to obey or to be executed, Luli journeys with the Sultan's oldest son to find the artifact. In a world where story is reality and illusion is truth, Luli will discover that everything, her enemy, her magic, even her own past, is not what it seems. So quite a simple premise, you know, it's kind of like the classic, we have a main character who kind of gets blackmailed by a powerful ruler and then she has to go on this quest, essentially. It is very much a quest story, which is a trope I have very warm feelings about, but I think overall this book was very compelling and a very good start to the series. So what did I like about it? What did I love about it? I really like the setting of this book. I think Chelsea has a really wonderful ability to build a world. I have a feeling she was probably quite inspired by S.A. Chakraborty because some of her world building feels quite similar, but it's not like she's copying it. It's very much an ode to Chakraborty's writing, I feel like. And it's quite lyrical, it's quite poetic, it feels very vivid. I felt like I could imagine these places that we were in, which I really loved. I love that in this type of setting, if that makes sense. I'm not really the biggest fan of world building. It doesn't have to be the best world building in the world to kind of capture me into the story. But I think Chelsea actually does this quite well. And I think it's done in a way that makes the world feel richer. And I really like that part of the book. But the second thing that I really liked with the characters, we follow two POVs in this book. We follow Luli El-Nazari, who is the Midnight Merchant, and then we also follow Mazen, is the prince that she ends up saving. That's not a spoiler because you literally find out in like the second chapter who he is. And the thing about Mazen is that he reminds me a bit like Ali in the David Batch trilogy. He's a bit of a dreamer, he hopes for a better world, he's quite naive, he's got this innocence to him that makes him very endearing, but sometimes you also want to shake him and make him realise that the reality of the world is not what he thinks it is and that it's a lot more grim and dark than he realizes. But I love those types of characters because I feel like by the end of the trilogy, which is what I'm assuming it is, he's going to have a lot of growth and he's going to have a lot of realizations about the world. And I think we definitely get that towards the end of the first book. My favorite was Mazen. I just really like that archetype and I really like seeing that archetype's world upended, as twisted as that may sound. I just like the kind of idealistic prince who, you know, really wants to change the world in a positive way, but then reality comes down on them and they're like, oh, what am I going to do now? So I really like Mazen, and I also really like Luli. I don't think she's a bad character by any means. I just feel like Mazen was a character that I identified with a lot more. The third character that we also follow is a character called Aisha. Aisha is really cool. She basically works with the prince's brother, and the prince's brother is not a very nice person, and he basically is tasked with killing jinn. He manages this jinn hunter organization, so he literally enjoys killing jinn. So Aisha is a part of his organization. She was the first person that he hired, and so we get Aisha's perspective because she's very much anti-jinn. Then we have someone like Luli who's very much pro-jinn, and then we have someone like Mazen who's somewhere in the middle. And I really like seeing these three different POVs because we get a little bit of a mishmash of everything and we get this 360 world of like what is happening, which is nice because it feels very balanced. The other really good thing about this book is that there is a great cast of side characters. The main side character that I really enjoyed was Luli's jinn, Kadir. Kadir is so good. He's so deadpan. He's so funny. He's very old. Obviously, he's like centuries and centuries old. And him and Luli have this really wonderful bond. Their relationship is very much a familial relationship, and they have this utmost trust between each other. And I just thought it was really endearing. I really just loved Kadir's bits because he's so funny, but he doesn't mean to be. He's just so sarcastic and dry. And it's good because it counteracts Luli's very serious nature as well. They're both quite serious characters, but I feel like they balance each other out because they just have this wonderful banter between the two of them. There are also other really great characters, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to stop it there. The other thing that I really loved about this book was the fact that there's a lot going on. There's a lot happening. You know, there is this kind of main plot, but then there's all these little side plots, all these little characters. The next thing that I really loved was the fact that there's so much happening on in this story. I mean, we have the main plot, obviously, that I mentioned in the synopsis, but we also have these little side plots, motivations to do these little side quests, and it's just really good. It can sometimes feel like maybe there's a bit too much happening, but I generally really enjoyed it, and I feel like because we have all these quests happening, it makes it a little bit more compelling because we know that there's going to be something happening every single chapter. There are also a lot of twists and turns in the story. It does feel like almost every other chapter there is something really big about to go down, which I think some people will really enjoy and others won't, so be aware of that. I personally land somewhere in the middle. I think if it's utilized in a way that makes sense, fine, I'm down with it. But if it does start to feel a bit like it's just happening for the sake of it, I do start to get a little bit annoyed, and I kind of want those quiet moments. But I feel like in general, I think Chelsea got a really good mixture of those events. I do sometimes felt like I've loved more quiet character interaction moments, just so that we could get to know the characters a little bit more on a personal level. But look, I'm really hoping that we'll get that in the next 2 books. The last thing that I will mention is the broader thematic work. I think Chelsea has some quite interesting thematic work going on in this book. I think there's this whole kind of idea of lost family versus found family. There's this whole idea of friendship and having trust. There's this whole idea of how, you know, like how relationships develop and how the best relationships are based on trust. But even then, those types of relationships might not necessarily turn out in the way that we would want them to be. Luli is very much a poor person, and you know, obviously we have Mason, who's someone who's very rich and wealthy, and so we definitely see the dichotomies there. There's a lot of stuff happening, and I feel like Chelsea does a really good job of generally covering quite a lot of heavy themes, but in a very sensitive way. So I have a feeling as well that as the books go on, we're going to get more exploration of that, and I'm really looking forward to that. Now, for what I didn't enjoy, I think the main thing that I didn't like as much as I could have liked is something that I mentioned earlier, or I touched on earlier, which is that there's a lot happening in this book. And I feel like for some people, if you're looking for like a really fast-paced read where there's a lot going on and it's all guns blazing, then I think you're going to love it and this is the perfect book for you. But for me, there were, like I said, I think I really wanted to spend more time with the characters, and I really wanted to spend more time in their heads and also interacting with other characters. So I would have loved more chapters where, you know, we just got people talking, or where we got the inner reflections of some of the POVs. We do get a bit of that. I just wish we'd had more of it. That is very much a personal preference thing. I really hope we get more of that in the second book and the third book. The other thing that I didn't dislike, but maybe worth knowing when you go into it, is that this world didn't really feel unique. You know, when I read David Bad Trilogy, it felt like such a unique world to me. That's not to say that she's the first person to do Middle Eastern fantasy, because that's obviously a load of nonsense. But I did feel like a lot of what was in the book felt quite similar to other Middle Eastern fantasy books that I have read. So I'm not really sure what differentiates it from the other books similar on the market. But that being said, I did enjoy it. It's just I don't really know how I would differentiate it from, say, the David Bad Trilogy or The Daughters of Izdihar, which is a book that I read earlier this year. It's still really fantastic. It's just, I don't really know what makes it unique, if that makes sense. So something just maybe keep in mind as you're reading it. I ended up giving this book a 4 stars. I really enjoyed it overall. I mean, 4 stars is really, really strong. I think as a debut book in particular, that's pretty damn stellar in my opinion. I think we have a promising start to what could potentially become a favourite trilogy of mine. I mean, when I read David Bad Trilogy, the first book was like a 3.7 stars. I have a feeling, or there is at least the potential, that that could happen with this series too. I feel like I'm a bit late to the party with this one, but I really enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down below about the Stardust Thief if you have read it, and if you have any questions, as always, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, folks. Stay safe. As always, take care, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye.